Hello everyone and welcome to your lecture on reliability and validity and how it is applied in the area of nutrition research. So yes, what we will be looking at today is various types of reliability and validity. Particularly we'll be studying about face validity, construct validity, discriminant validity, relative validity, predictive validity, and test-retest reliability and internal consistency. So now why is it important to study these concepts of reliability and validity? Well, this is a bit more regarding further advanced level of nutrition research, which is if you decide to pursue the path of nutrition research, you would have to produce accurate findings, systematic findings, findings that are consistent, and that is where you will have to apply the concepts of reliability and validity. But is this applicable for you as a dietitian in practice? Yes, it is. For instance, when I was collaborating with ACT Health when I was a lecturer in the University of Canberra. The dietitians at ACT Health, these were clinical dietitians, how you are aspiring to be one, and they were running a outpatient clinic for children who are above the healthy weight range, in the range of overweight and obesity, and they used to use validated questionnaires which are out there in the research, in the area of research, into their clinical practice. But to be able to do that, as a dietitian, as a clinical dietitian, to be able to integrate research into your practice in the outpatient clinic, you need to have the understanding of reliability and validity. Otherwise, you may end up choosing an incorrect tool, wrong tool in doing so. Alright, that is how this information is helpful for you in both directions. If you plan to pursue research, this information is absolutely critical, and even if you want to practice as a clinical dietitian, community dietitian, etc., you would still need to have this knowledge base, know-how. So in case if you have to use a questionnaire, you know which is a good and a respectable tool to use. Alright. Okay. Just as how we have been doing that, the pre-readings which I have for my lectures, they are not complicated research articles, but YouTube videos to introduce you broadly to the concept of what we will be looking at, and then I do the detailing of the lectures. So please do have a look at this YouTube video. It gives you a nice broad overview about what is reliability and validity. Alright. So in which area of nutrition research is the concept of reliability and validity applicable? Well, it is when you are dealing with tool development and when you are wanting to use tools. What are tools when we talk about in the area of nutrition? Well, it could be tools such as questionnaires. For example, you have from the World Health Organization, you have the SF36 Quality of Life questionnaire. This is a questionnaire which is used globally by so many countries, translated in so many languages. It is validated for so many populations, Indians, Caucasians, Samoans, so on and so forth. So yes, it is used widely. But yes, why is it used widely? Because it is very strongly validated. Similarly, you will come across dietary tools when someone has developed a new dietary tool such as a new food frequency questionnaire. They would have to do the reliability and validity test. That is when you use it. You even have to do validity testing for physical tools that you use, such as say your SGA forms. Your SGA forms needs to be reliable, validated in the population that you are studying. You may be studying say a geriatric population at a community center, say in a rural outsetting. Is the SGA tool validated for such so and so population? Reliability and validity concepts also applies for physical things that you use. For example, you may use a bioelectrical impedance machine to see the body fat percentage of an individual, or something as simple as the home weighing scales on which you stand and you take your weight. That also needs to be reliable, it needs to be validated, otherwise it can give you wrong weight readings, right? So the concept of reliability and validity is applicable across nutrition research, be it questionnaire, be it physical tools, be it the forms that you have had experience in using, such as the SGA questionnaire tool, so on and so forth. Alright. So therefore you are learning the concept of reliability and validity, because this is very important when it comes to you being a competent overall dietitian. Alright, so the example that I'll be using in explaining you the concept of reliability and validity is, sorry, my apologies, is one of my very recent publication. So in this publication, I developed two questionnaires and I validated these two questionnaires. The first questionnaire is called as the picky eating questionnaire. The mothers completed the questionnaire. The second questionnaire is called as the child reported food preference questionnaire. The child completed the questionnaire. The child was 7 to 12 years old, and these tools were validated in Indians who were living in Australia. Alright. So as I said, the concept of reliability and validity is applicable across nutrition research, and we will be taking this as an example, and we'll be going through the specific types of reliability and validity. Okay, so what is validity? In simple terms, validity is your accuracy. Alright, so how accurately is your tool measuring what it is supposed to measure? So if you stand on the weighing scale, is it telling you your accurate weight? Alright, so that is accuracy. Alright, so how accurate it is, how correct it is. Alright, so that is what is validity in very simple terms. There are various types of validity. The first step that we will be looking at is face validity. What does face validity mean? It means the degree to which the purpose of the instrument is clearly understood by the stakeholders. Now, stakeholders could be anybody, but let's put all of these concepts into examples which makes more sense to you. So, for instance, when I developed these two questionnaires which I spoke to you about in the last slide, how did I do face validity in my study? So, well, my first stakeholders were dietitians. So, I developed these two questionnaires. Then I had 4 dietitians who are expert dietitians, and they are expert in terms of, yes, their nutrition and dietetic knowledge, and they are also experts in terms of the ethnic background, meaning the Indian culture and the foods about Indian culture, so on and so forth. So, I had a mixture of dietitian. There were dietitians who were highly expert, say in the food knowledge, in the child eating behavior knowledge, and some of them were expert in the ethnic knowledge. So, I can get the best input from all of these dietitians. Alright, so yeah, so what did I do? I had these 4 expert dietitians on the panel. I developed these 2 questionnaires. I gave them my questionnaire and I asked for feedback. Do you think that these foods will be easy to understand by Indian mothers and children living in Australia? Do they make sense? Have I used certain terminologies which are not generally used within the Australian setting? Alright, are these foods that I have in my questionnaire, are they culturally appropriate? So what was my questionnaire? My questionnaire was a sort of, it looked like a food frequency questionnaire where I had a list of foods from all of the 5 core food groups. So I had vegetables, I had fruits, I had cereals and grains, and I had dairy items, and then I had protein rich food. So I had list of these foods, and mothers had to take on a Likert scale whether she thinks that her child is a picky eater, fussy eater or not, and the child had the same type of foods, and they had to tell me whether they like the food or they hate the food, so on and so forth. So the child questionnaire was quite fun and friendly. It had a 5-point Likert scale, and it were smiley faces, very smiley, happy smiley, meaning I love this food, say maybe I love bananas, and say a crying face or a grumpy face, meaning the child hates that food, like Brussels sprouts. Alright, so this is the type of Likert scale that the child had. The mother had just the regular looking Likert scale, and there were these list of foods, and the mums and the children had to tell me. The mums had to tell me whether they thought that the child is a picky eater, and the child had to tell me whether they like or they dislike the food. Okay, so this was the concept of the questionnaire. And I asked the 4 dietitians to see whether these foods are sensible, whether they are suitable for the Australian setting, but they are also sensitive enough for the Indian culture within the Australian setting. So these were the type of things that I asked the dietitians to give me feedback on. I had an online focus group with them, and that's how I got feedback from the dietitians. Then my second level of stakeholders, I revised the questionnaire based upon the feedback provided by these 4 dietitians. Then I went to my main stakeholders, which is the mothers and the children. So I had about 20 mothers and children, and I asked them to complete the questionnaire. This was my pilot study, all right. And then I had semi-structured interviews with the mothers and the children, and I asked their opinion about, did they understand the questionnaire, was there something which did not make sense to them, and so on and so forth. So it was a semi-structured interview, so I had questions planned out, and then I could ask these questions to the mothers and children. So as you see, face validity can be done in a very qualitative form. I used focus group in one setting, I used semi-structured interviews in the other setting. The main essence of face validity is to see whether the instrument that you have designed, is it sensible enough, is it correctly understood, or is it correctly interpreted by your main audience. Okay, so this was the steps, the processes that I took to address face validity. Alright, then you have construct validity. What is construct validity? As I said that I had these list of foods. They were fruits, they were vegetables, they were grain, cereals, dairy, protein rich foods, so on and so forth. And basically I have to bunch items together, and this bunch of items are called as constructs. Alright. So if I take some other example, for instance, if you have, say, a quality of life questionnaire, you may have 4 questions which are asking about the person's physical activity, and this forms the physical activity construct. Then you may have 4 questions which is asking about the person's emotional health, and this would be the emotional health construct. Then you may have 4 questions about the person's dietary habits. This would be the diet construct. So this is what constructs are. You may have couple of questions or couple of items, and they make sense to be bundled up together, and this together forms a construct. This is called construct validity. What is construct validity? Construct validity is when you bunch up couple of items together. Are they meaningful when you bunch them up together? Are they sensible enough to be bunched up together? Alright, so that is what you want to find out. Alright, so for example, in your physical activity construct, if you suddenly have one diet construct, when you do statistical analysis, the analysis will say that, hang on, the diet item does not fit well into the physical activity construct. Okay, so the statistics, the maths behind these softwares with which you do construct validity, they can actually tell you whether this is sensible enough to be bunched up together or not. So what are the type of statistics that I am talking about, which can tell you whether you have good construct validity or bad construct validity, so on and so forth. So the statistical methods are called as exploratory factor analysis, and the second one is called as confirmatory factor analysis. The first one which we are looking at is exploratory factor analysis. So exploratory factor analysis can be done in a simple software such as SPSS as well. Basically, you are telling the software that, look, I have so many items, you tell me which items form a good construct. Okay, so when you use exploratory factor analysis, when you do not have a clear underlying hypothesis as to which items should go well together or not. Okay, so for instance, if I take my questionnaire as an example, when I run an exploratory factor analysis, the statistical software tells me that you have these green leafy veggies such as your kale, and then you have your broccoli, and you have your Brussels sprouts. All of these veggies are very, very high in a polyphenolic compound called as theanine. These 3 types of green leafy veggie items, they are very bitter in nature, and the statistical software tells me, put these 3 items well together. Okay, so it gives me something which is called as factor loading, and basically it tells me, look, these 3 items sit well together in one construct. Okay, then I have other veggies in my questionnaire such as cabbage and cauliflower and green beans and green peas. These veggies, they do not have as much theanine content as the other darker green leafy vegetables, and therefore these items on the Likert scale, children quite liked these items in comparison to my darker green leafy veggie items. So the software told me, bunch these items together, these type of lighter green leafy veggies together, and they sit well in one construct. Okay, so I have two constructs over here. One, dark green leafy vegetables, which the children do not like at all, and the statistical software told me these go well together. And I have these four lighter green leafy vegetables, and the software told me bunch them together, they go well together. Okay, so this is done by exploratory factor analysis. So this is forming constructs, this is forming meaningful items sitting well together. This is called construct validity. The second way to do construct validity is confirmatory factor analysis. Confirmatory factor analysis as a statistical technique is a very advanced technique. It is a very complex technique. It is a highly robust technique. Robust technique meaning the findings of confirmatory factor analysis are highly accurate. They are much stronger because the underlying mathematics which is there behind doing confirmatory factor analysis is much more stronger and robust. Okay. So what is the main difference between exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis? Confirmatory factor analysis over here, you do confirmatory factor analysis when you have an underlying hypothesis of which items should go well together. Alright, so for example, if you have a quality of life questionnaire and you know that a person's quality of life is determined by their emotional health, by their physical health such as physical activity, by their dietary choices. So you have literature, and the literature tells you that you have these different domains of quality of life, and you should develop questions in each of these domains which constitutes quality of life. Okay, so you have an underlying hypothesis, you have previous research to guide you in developing your constructs. So you already know which items should be bunched together. You are not relying on the software to tell you, please tell me which items should be bunched up together. No, you yourself are confident based upon existing literature that these items should go well together. Alright. So similarly, what I did for my research paper is confirmatory factor analysis, and I knew that salad leaves, broccoli and Brussels sprouts, they are very high in theanine content, and because of this I will bunch them together and I will run a confirmatory factor analysis, which is a way of doing construct validity. Alright. So this is how the software, software which does confirmatory factor analysis, the output looks like this. Like you know how in SPSS you have an output. So when you do confirmatory factor analysis in the software, and the software is called as AMOS, this is the sort of output it gives you like diagrams. Okay. So these three items, salad leaves, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, these are one construct. Then you have your zucchini, capsicum, pumpkin, pulses and legumes. These are my second constructs. Okay. And as you know, as per Australian Guides to Healthy Eating, which was the foundation for me designing these constructs, pulses and legumes can sit in the vegetable group as well. Therefore, I decided that my pulses and legumes should come in the vegetable group. Make sense? Okay. So, yep. Construct validity is when you are bunching single items together to form one meaningful construct. All of these single items together, they sit well together and they are trying to assess and determine one theme, one concept. Alright, it could be physical activity, it could be dietary choices, it could be emotional health, or it could be something which I am doing in my study, which is which veggies children really hate versus which veggies children do not hate as much. Okay, so this is super hating, this is sort of medium hating. Okay, so I hope this makes sense what is construct validity. Alright, there are specific criteria that you need to meet for construct validity. As I said, construct validity is very robust, it is very accurate, and therefore it has a certain prerequisites which needs to be fulfilled for you to do an accurate construct validity in confirmatory factor analysis. So what are the criteria for confirmatory factor analysis? You should have minimum of 3 items per construct. So meaning I have my picky green leafy vegetables, my dark green leafy vegetable construct. I have a minimum of 3 items. If you only have 2 items, you cannot run a confirmatory factor analysis. Okay. Alright, so yes, you need to have a minimum of 3 items. Then an ideal way of doing confirmatory factor analysis is that you start with 6 items, and then the software, what it does is that the items which are really weak, they do not sit well into the construct, you remove them, and that's how you reduce the number of items. Okay, so I may start off with salad leaves, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and then I may have 2 other sort of green leafy vegetables in this. Alright, and then they may not sit well together, I may remove them, and this forms my one construct. Okay, then each construct should be distinctly different from each other. This is called as divergent or discriminant validity. Very important, guys. Please pay attention to this one. So when you talk about construct validity, the concept of construct validity is that you have this one construct, these 3 items sit well in one construct, they are meaningfully assessing one thing, which is children's dislike towards dark green leafy veggies. Okay. What is discriminant validity? Discriminant validity means that the second construct which I have, which is medium hate, this is quite a different construct from my dark green leafy vegetables, meaning I cannot just club all of these items in and make it one long simple questionnaire. No, these are meaningful little constructs that I need to make individually. For example, if we talk about quality of life questionnaire, you cannot just simply have physical activity questions, diet questions, emotional health questions, everything together and say this all just assesses quality of life. I don't need to separate all of this out. No, it is very important to separate all of this out. Why? Because what if you have a sampled population and in which their quality of life is suffering, not because they are not eating healthy, but because they are not exercising well. What if you have another sample in some other state or in some other country where you are doing research, and over there the problem is emotional health. It is not about diet, it is not about physical activity, it is emotional health. When you put things into meaningful construct, you can design meaningful interventions. That is why we break down things into meaningful constructs. I hope that makes sense. Alright. Therefore, what is divergent validity or discriminant validity? It says that when you have 2 constructs, these 2 constructs are very different and you can't just mesh them together and make this as one big construct. This will not give you meaningful findings. Okay. So there was this one such case in my questionnaire. For example, we look at the dairy group. In the dairy group, the Australian Indian children, they did not like plain milk. They did not like plant-based milk like your soya milk and almond milk and all of that. Alright, they did not like that. But then there were certain other type of dairies which they really liked. They used to love having cheese. They used to love having plain yogurt. Okay. So basically what is this telling me? This is telling me that the picky dairy construct is very different from non-picky dairy construct. Please do not put all of this together in one construct because you will not get meaningful findings. If I want to do a good intervention with my Australian Indian children, if I want to teach them to love their dairy, I don't really need to focus on cheese and plain yogurt because they already like cheese and plain yogurt. But I could have my interventions to encourage them to have dairy such as milk and soy milk. Does that make sense? Okay. So basically this is just the last statement over here is just telling you that yes, discriminant validity is you do all of this bunch of statistics and this bunch of statistics tells you that discriminant validity is recognized, meaning picky eating dairy construct is very different from non-picky eating dairy construct. These are 2 things which should be separately investigated. Do not make this one dairy construct and put all 4 items inside. They will not give you meaningful findings. Alright, so I hope this is helpful. So that is why you do construct validity, guys, because in a questionnaire, you may have 50 questions, you may have 20 questions, you may have n number of questions. You need to break them down into meaningful constructs, meaningful themes, meaningful domains, because this eventually will help you to design meaningful interventions and help you to focus on things which really need your attention. For example, physical activity and not diet, or vice versa, stuff like that. Similarly, in my case, I don't need to waste time in cheese and plain yogurt. Children love that already. Let me encourage them to have a dairy such as milk as well. Okay. All right. What is the other criteria for confirmatory factor analysis? For doing confirmatory factor analysis, you need a minimum sample size of 400. Okay. And how do you do confirmatory factor analysis? You do it in 3 levels. The first level is a training data set, which you do on half of the sample. So like I had 462 was my sample size. I did it on half of my sample, which is 231 children. Then you do it on validation data set. You do it on the other 50% of your data set, which is the other 231 children. If your training data set gives you the same results, if your validation data set gives you the same results, then you combine 231 with 231, make it your total complete data set, which is 462 children, and then you do the entire analysis again. So you do the analysis in 3 levels: training data set, validation data set, complete data set. Okay. Alright, and you need a minimum of 5-point Likert scale if you do confirmatory factor analysis on these sort of questionnaires. Alright, and as you see, most of the nutrition questionnaires, they are on Likert scale. So you need a minimum of 5-point Likert scale, which is from say like to dislike, 5-point Likert scale to do your confirmatory factor analysis. Okay, so before I proceed to relative validity, let me just summarize for you what we did. We spoke about construct validity. Construct validity is to identify whether you have these singular items. Do these singular items, when you combine them, do they meaningfully assess one single theme? Okay, that is very important. You can statistically assess for construct validity using 2 methods: exploratory factor analysis and confirmatory factor analysis. Exploratory factor analysis, the software tells you this is the items which you should bunch together to give you a meaningful finding. But most of the time in nutrition research, we have a lot of previous research under our belt. So we do confirmatory factor analysis and we say, based upon previous research, based upon the Australian Guides to Healthy Eating, which was in my case, alright, I do construct validity using confirmatory factor analysis. Okay, why do you want to bunch things into meaningful constructs? Because this helps you to plan meaningful interventions. Alright, that is why you don't just leave 50 items like that in your questionnaire, you make them into meaningful constructs. Okay. Then these were just certain criteria which you have to fulfill to do confirmatory factor analysis, which is a minimum of 3 items, and you start with 6. We spoke about divergent validity, very important. Okay, meaning if you have these 2 constructs, they are very different from each other, so do not bunch them together. That is what divergent validity does for you. It identifies that your 2 constructs are very different and you should not club them together, because that will not give you meaningful results. Okay, then you have your other criteria for confirmatory factor analysis, which is you need a minimum sample size of 400 participants. You do it in 3 levels: training data set 50% of the population, validation data set 50% of the population, and then the entire population together. And you need a minimum of 5-point Likert scale. Okay, so this was my Likert scale, picky eating to say 5-point Likert scale to very strongly agree to very strongly disagree, picky eating. Okay, so I hope guys this has been helpful and this has been meaningful. Now we go to relative validity. Relative validity is also called as convergent validity. What do you do over here? Basically, I have my questionnaire. I designed 2 questionnaires. I designed the picky eating questionnaire and I designed the children's questionnaire. Well, for one of my questionnaire, which is the picky eating questionnaire, convergent validity tells you to take some other questionnaire which is out there in the literature and ask your participants to complete that some other questionnaire, and then you compare the answers of your questionnaire to the external questionnaire. For this, the external questionnaire that you have used, that needs to be a meaningful tool. It needs to be a very similar tool to your questionnaire. So let me take my example. I developed my picky eating questionnaire, and as you know that my picky eating questionnaire had singular items such as cabbage and cauliflower and green beans and green peas, stuff like that. Okay, so this is my picky eating questionnaire, as you can see. Alright. Then I took an external questionnaire, which is my benchmark questionnaire, my reference questionnaire. This questionnaire is called as the food preference questionnaire. This is the reference to it. Okay. So this is an external questionnaire. Somebody else in the United Kingdom has designed this questionnaire. But if you look at this column, this second column, the food preference questionnaire, which is the external questionnaire, it also has single items like myself, but I cannot just use this food preference questionnaire because it's been designed for very young children, 2 to 4 years of age, and British children. This is not my age group. Okay. My group is Indian children who are living in Australia and who are 7 to 12 years of age. Okay. So I cannot just simply use some questionnaire out there like the food preference questionnaire in my population, because my population is very different compared to the population in which the food preference questionnaire was validated. Okay. But I can use food preference questionnaire as a benchmark, as an example tool for relative validity, or also called as convergent validity. Alright. So basically what do I want to see? I want to see is that in my questionnaire, in very simple terms, in my picky eating questionnaire, if the mothers say that their child hates cabbage and he or she does not like cabbage, if my children in my study say that, oh, we hate cabbage, we don't like cabbage, well, the same item is also present in the external questionnaire, which is the food preference questionnaire. And basically in the external questionnaire, the mothers and the children should be saying the same thing. Meaning when they complete the UK based questionnaire, they should also be saying that, oh yes, my child does not like cabbage, and the child should say that, yes, I hate cabbage. Okay. So basically this is relative validity. You have your instrument. Alright, you compare it to a very similar instrument which is out there in the literature, and you see whether your participants are reporting the same findings. If they are reporting the same findings, meaning that's a good sign, they are understanding your questionnaire, they are interpreting it correctly, and irrespective of how you ask them, be it in your questionnaire or be it in somebody else's questionnaire, they will still say the same thing because the answer is accurate. It is coming from their experience. They won't say in my questionnaire, if the child in my questionnaire says that, oh, I hate cabbage, and when I ask him to complete the external questionnaire, Anna Flight's questionnaire, this is the author is Anna Flight for this one, and if Anna Flight's questionnaire, if they say, oh, I love cabbages, there's something going wrong. Either they are not understanding your questionnaire, or something is something you have to figure out. That is not the right thing. Okay. So strong relative validity is when the participants answer accurately in your questionnaire and in the external questionnaire, which is very, very similar to your questionnaire. Okay. So cabbage, it should have similar items as per your questionnaire. Okay. So yes, you can do a simple correlation on this, and you can find out how well is your questionnaire understood in reference to a external questionnaire. Okay, so this is called as relative validity or convergent validity. I hope this has been easy to understand. Now we move on to predictive validity. So what is predictive validity? For instance, I have designed two questionnaires, the picky eating questionnaire and the mothers completing the picky eating questionnaire and the child completing the child reported food preference questionnaire. Basically, from literature, I believe, my hypothesis is that if I use my questionnaire and I do a IV-DV association, if you recall, we spoke about measures of association between independent variable and dependent variable. That is the concept I'm talking about. I have my questionnaires. For example, over here I have taken the child questionnaire, which is the child reported food preference questionnaire, and the children say that they hate dark green leafy vegetables and they hate the light green leafy vegetables and pulses and legumes as well. Alright. How does this information relate to their weight status? Well, in the literature the literature tells me that children who are picky about their fruits and vegetables, they tend to have a lower weight status. This is what the previous literature is telling me. Other people who have done research studies on picky eating. Okay. Can my questionnaire do the same thing for children in my studies? So in my questionnaire, I have recorded my data on the questionnaire. I have also asked the children and the mother. I have measured the child's height and weight, and I have calculated children's BMI Z scores from the height and weight that I have measured for these children. Okay. So, well, when I do a simple correlation, it tells me that yes, even my questionnaire can be used for predicting the child's weight status. Do you see how the term predicting validity therefore implies? Okay, so with predictive validity, it tells me that yes, your questionnaire can give you meaningful association with dependent variables. So my questionnaire over here is the independent variable, weight status of the child, which is BMI Z score, that is the dependent variable. My questionnaire is telling me that yes, if your children in your study, if they say that they hate eating dark green leafy vegetable, they are likely to be underweight. Okay, so that is what is predictive validity. Does your questionnaire give you meaningful predictive outcomes? Alright, and yes, my questionnaire did give me meaningful predictive outcomes in terms of the child's weight status, because weight as an outcome variable is a very important outcome variable in the literature of picky eating. Okay, so I hope that is sensible and meaningful, guys, as to what is predictive validity. Alright, now going on to the concept of reliability. What is reliability? It is the consistency. Validity was all about accuracy, how accurate your findings are. Okay, validity is all accuracy, whereas you have reliability, it is all about consistency. So validity is the correctness. Okay, so it should tell you accurate results, correct results. Reliability is consistency. What does consistency mean? It means even if you have a weighing scale, even if you weigh yourself 10 times, 100 times, 3 times on that weighing scale, it should give you consistent results. Okay, so that is consistency. What is validity in terms of weighing scales? Well, it should tell you your correct weight. Okay, if I am 52 kgs and if the weighing scale tells me I am 38 kgs, well, something is going wrong with the scale. That is not valid. Alright. Consistency is that if I am 52 kg and if I weigh myself 3 times, my weight should be 52, 52, 52. Yes, it can be 52.2, 52.1, 52.2 again. Okay. So, little bit of error margin is allowed, but that is consistency. Alright. What are the two main types of reliability within the domain of reliability that we will be studying? The first one is the test retest reliability. Okay, so what is test retest reliability? Again, taking an example over here, my participants, which is mothers and children, they have completed the questionnaire. Alright, then within 4 weeks, I asked the mothers and children to complete the questionnaire again. So they are completing exactly the same questionnaire. They are completing my questionnaire 2 times. They completed it once. After 4 weeks, they are completing it again. The same exact questionnaire, my questionnaire. Then I do sort of a correlation to see whether the findings are still the same. Meaning, if in the first time, if the child says that I hate cabbage, within 4 weeks, the child should not suddenly say that, oh, I absolutely love cabbage. Okay, because dietary choices, they do not suddenly change overnight. Okay, it may change in a couple of years, but what literature has shown in my space is that do not go more than 4 weeks, but do not go less than 4 weeks as well, because if it is less than 4 weeks, participants will simply remember what they filled in the last time and they will just simply put the same answer. But it is, say, at somewhere at the mark of 4 weeks, that is good enough for them to reiterate their actual original responses. Alright. So, my intention over here is to find out that if my participants complete the same questionnaire within a respectable time frame, what is that respectable time frame? That is something which I find out from the literature. Okay, the literature tells me, in the picky eating area, the literature tells me 4 weeks is a good time, alright, to do a retest again, alright. Therefore, the term test, retest reliability. Okay. And then if you have the same responses, meaning your participants are giving you accurate results, they are not just quickly filling in whatever to finish the questionnaire and to leave. Alright, so they are not doing that, they are giving you valid findings. Okay, what is intra-class correlation? It is like Spearman's correlation. All that is statistics, you don't need to know that, but you do need to know the concept of test retest reliability. It is where the definition is, or the explanation is, that measures the variation in the measurement taken by the same person or using the same instrument on the same item and under the same conditions. Okay, but I feel rather than just reading out these definitions, it's easier for you to understand if I give you real life examples which I have used in practice, and that just if you have good examples, they fit in your memory well. Okay, so that was the intention over here, and I hope this has been clear. Now we move on to the last type of reliability measure that we are studying. This is called as overall reliability. It is also called as internal consistency. Okay, so same thing, overall reliability or internal consistency. So basically, what does this say? Basically, guys, your internal consistency is very similar to your construct validity. If you remember construct validity, we spent quite some time. You have a bunch of items, you club them together. These items should hold well together. These items should be measuring what they are supposed to measure, like physical activity items should measure physical activity things. Okay. So similarly, internal consistency tells you the same thing, which is it examines whether the items proposed to form a construct or a scale. Construct is also called as scale in some questionnaire. I have used the term construct because that's how I was taught and that's how I use it. But if you find the term scales in some other sort of research papers, do not be confused. So yes, to propose to form a construct scale measure, what it is intended to measure. Alright, so basically it is the same thing, meaning you have 4 questions on physical activity, you club them together to form a physical activity construct. Is this, are these 4 items fitting well together? Okay. So basically, as part of best practice, guys, what I do is, and what researchers generally do is, they first do internal consistency, because this is very quick, it is very, it's very fast to do, it is not as robust, it is not as accurate as confirmatory factor analysis. So please be mindful, you cannot substitute construct validity for overall reliability. The term is overall reliability, meaning it is just going to give you a broad overview, a broad consensus about whether these 4 items should be hanging in well together or not. Okay, so it is just a broad overview. So the best practice which researchers do is, they do overall reliability first. This can be done in SPSS, and it is generally the output which you get is called as Cronbach alpha. So when you see the term Cronbach alpha in research papers, basically they have done internal consistency or they have done overall reliability, and these are the say acceptable levels of overall reliability. Alright, 0.9 very good, 0 say less than 0.5 unacceptable, stuff like that. Okay. So yes, so basically you do this first. If you have good Cronbach alpha values, good, excellent, acceptable, anything above or equal to 0.7 is considered decent. So yes, if I do my overall reliability and it gives me decent results, then I go on and then I do my construct validity, and I do it using confirmatory factor analysis, because in nutrition research you always have, in most of your research you have an underlying literature, underlying rationale as to why you are clubbing things together or not. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful, guys. So this is the second form of reliability, the most important form. Again, be mindful, there are other types of reliability and validity, but the ones which are most applicable for you in the area of nutrition research is what I have covered, and these are the type of terminologies that you will see a lot in the nutrition research papers. Okay, so yes guys, that's about it from my end for the current lecture, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.